Pop quiz. Is it pronounced papier mache or paper mache? On a previous installment of Paper Clips, I shared a snippet of an artifact-inspired paper mache piece, and you wanted to know more. As someone who studied French and whose name is French, I grew up saying papier mache. As an American, I eventually came around to the layperson's way of saying paper mache. The answer? Both. Whichever one you prefer. Or we could just call it Paper Renee. Tomato. With that out of the way, let me show you my latest developments in paper mache. Here's my latest project in salvaged paper, already dry and ready to paint. Oh wait, you want to know how I got to this point. To create a faux stone piece with a carved effect like mine, you will need to start with something solid and lightweight, like a styrofoam block. Since there's often ample styrofoam lying around begging to be recycled, this shouldn't be a problem. Start with a fresh batch of salvaged paper mache clay, the recipe for which you can find linked somewhere around this video. Need the paper clay. Need it a lot. You'll be layering your paper clay onto a base. Here's mine. You can use any shape or size of styrofoam that you have on hand. You can even cut your styrofoam.
Use caution.
For this concept, I had an idea to create a dimensional shape with smooth or flat surfaces that I could then press designs into with my sculpting tool. So here I'm flattening my sides. I am a bit of an art history nerd, so my inspiration was sort of mark making through the ages. Think hieroglyphics, the Mayan calendar, the Phaistos disc, even Egyptian block statues. I cover my entire styrofoam piece blending each side. Except for the bottom, I'll do that later after I finish sculpting all the other sides. Here are the tools I'm going to be using to make the marks. You can find some of these linked in my Amazon storefront. Others are random objects I found lying around my studio. The only requirement I gave myself for this project was to cover the entire piece with pattern. Relax! By pressing my various tools into the surface of my paper mache clay, I am creating a random series of patterns and designs. Freedom. A far cry from the time where I researched hieroglyphics to translate a phrase to create a design for an Egyptian exhibition here in Atlanta. Or the time I researched a Latin phrase to design a city seal. Doing the most. This is not that. For this piece, there was no extensive research and design plan. I just grabbed my tools and gave myself room to experiment and mess up and go back and redo if necessary. If you don't love an area, you can easily use your finger to smooth it back out and do it again. The intent here is way more relaxed and easy with a focus on creative fun. Of course, if you wanted to add specific symbols that have meaning for you, that's perfectly fine as well. Pro tip, especially if you haven't watched my other videos on paper mache. Why? As paper pulp dries, the water it contains evaporates, causing the medium to shrink. So your sculpture will shrink as it hardens. To ensure your piece retains the definition and the details that you work so hard to apply, you want to keep reinforcing those lines and details as your piece dries over the course of days. Now I'm applying slip to keep the paper clay nice and supple as I continue to work. A paintbrush is not necessary for this. I just wasn't in the mood to get my fingers goopy in that moment. I've now covered all the sides that have clay with pattern. I've allowed all the sides to dry enough so that I can now turn it onto one of those sides and apply paper clay to the bottom. Once I've done that, I can allow the entire piece to dry completely. Once the piece is fully dried and hardened, I can proceed to paint. How you paint this piece depends on the look you're going for. To achieve a weathered stone effect, I begin with a darker value gray. I'm spritzing with water to help distribute this layer of paint evenly. I then use an add and subtract approach to achieve a mottled effect. Using a dry brush, I apply gradually lighter shades of acrylic. Brush your paint on sporadically, then go behind it with a damp cloth or paper towel to achieve a distressed effect.
Just look at that.
Also, when I say dry brush, I really mean keep your brush relatively dry, except for, of course, the paint. If you need to add water to rub or blend, spray it directly onto your piece or add it to the cloth that you're using to rub your piece. Here's the second piece that's still drying right next to the original. The one that's still drying is dry to the touch, but feels something like a styrofoam cup when you squeeze. I want to point out that this cracked appearance is easily preventable, but since I think it adds to the stone effect, I just left it like it was. So this one is dry enough now to apply the bottom layer of paper clay and its patterns. The first piece is fully hardened and can now withstand me showing you just how hard this piece is. The base is also paper mache, but we'll have to save that for another video. Stay tuned, it's in my drafts folder. For now, I'm going to show you the mostly finished piece and the concept behind it. I give you light codes. In my usual fashion, I thought of yet one more thing to add to this. A little celestial otherworldly lighting. But I would have to demonstrate that in another video. Let me know in comments if you want to see that. Otherwise, thanks for watching.